this is a webinar we're especially excited about, focused on performance-based cycle programming. My name's Will Wadley. I'm the marketing director for Spirit Commercial Fitness. Spirit Commercial, in case you didn't know, is a sub-brand of Diaco International, and it's a company that manufactures commercial fitness equipment, and it's equipment we're very proud of. We're known for our industry-leading warranty and the service we provide through a network in the United States. I'm going to introduce you to the team that puts on this series. We have Brent Brown. He is our Vice President of Sales and Marketing. We have Mateo Baker, our East Coast Regional Sales Manager, and myself, of course. This series that we do monthly is designed to help aspiring fitness business owners with all of the information and tools they need to get started. And that's really the focus. This one obviously is more angled towards cycle studios, and it's going to be something that current owners or instructors would find helpful as well, because of course we're focused on programming. Let me just go through a quick rundown of what you can expect, over the next 45 minutes to an hour. The first thing we're going to do is get straight to our guest speaker, Brook Benten, and she's going to have a conversation with Mateo Baker about performance cycling. And after that, we're going to quickly tell you about a mentorship program that we also put on. This program is a much more in-depth informational program designed to, again, help people get off the ground, people interested in starting any kind of fitness business. The cool thing about that program is it's completely free. So definitely something worth listening to if you're one of those people out there who is thinking about starting their own fitness business. And then lastly, we're going to do a Q&A. And this is a great time for you to ask any questions that you have. The cool thing is you can start asking questions now if you'd like, using the little Q&A button that you see. Depends, sometimes it's at the top of your screen in Zoom, sometimes it's at the bottom, but it's a little Q&A symbol. If you click it, you can just type out a question, and we'll make sure that we get to that question and any others we receive at the end of the webinar. So if you have any for Brooke or any questions for any of us, please don't hesitate to start typing as soon as it comes to mind. Let's introduce you to our guest speaker, Brook Benten. She is a Johnny G master trainer, but she's also someone who has more than 20 years of experience as a fitness instructor and fitness personality. And she is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to any kind of instruction, personal training. If you want to reach out to Brooke, she gave us an email address that you can send any questions to her personally. It's listed here on the screen. You can also follow her on Instagram, at Brooke Benten is the handle. So that does it for the introduction. I'm going to now hand it over to Mateo and Brooke, and we'll all sit back and listen to the conversation they have and the information that Brooke has about performance cycling. So let me bring them into the conversation now. Just one moment. All right, so there's Brooke. How's it going?
Good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And Mateo, we're still working on, let's try this one more time. Mateo, I think we can hear you, but I'm trying to get your camera turned on.
Okay, here he goes.
Wait for it. There we go.
Yeah, I think I'm in there now.
All right.
I was on the outside looking in.
Yeah. Okay, well, hey, I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm real excited to not only meet you, but to speak with you today and hear all about your background and find out a little bit more about you. And that's how we'll kind of start off, because I heard through Will, he went through some of your credentials, which is, and I know about it because preparing for this this webinar today, I know a little bit about you. And so I know that I'm really excited about meeting you, but I'd like for the people to get to know you a little bit better because you have such an interesting background. how did you get into the fitness to begin with, and why did you decide, to center your career around it?
Sure. Thank you, Mateo. We could go for quite a while here. I have worn so many hats in the fitness industry. I'm kind of the blossom of fitness. I've worn so many hats.
Yeah.
I got into it in the first place because all through high school, I was the feature baton twirler. And so I would practice for hours on end, choreographing routines where I would twirl and toss a baton overhead and do all kinds of acrobatics. And it was so fun. In fact, the highlight of my high school career was the final performance on the football field. The band played Come On Baby Light My Fire by The Doors. And I soaked the ends of the baton in kerosene and lit them on fire and got to twirl with a fire baton. And it's a good thing I didn't drop it. I think we were under a burn ban at the time. And I was just, let's ask for forgiveness, not for permission, and twirled with fire. Luckily there was no drop. And it kind of, after that, I'm like, there's nowhere else to go with baton twirling. Drop the mic, it's done. So I needed something big to fill that void. I would practice at least 4 hours a day. And I knew going on into college that I didn't want to be handcuffed to that kind of practice, which you have to do. Any baton twirler knows if you're going to be performing in front of a whole crowd of football fans, you better put the time into practice. So I needed something big to fill that void. And that's when I came across step aerobics. And it was like a hand in a glove. I'm still choreographing movement with music. And the great thing is, it's not just myself. I'm doing this for a whole slew of other people. And so you add that element of social wellness on top of the physical wellness and emotional wellness of just moving to music. So
did you let the fire part go? Or are you still doing that in class?
I have never taught a fitness class with fire to date, but you are giving me
Good
ideas. So time will tell. But so I started teaching step, and my fitness director at the university said, it's great that you love teaching step aerobics, but we need instructors that can teach anything on the schedule. So if you're going to teach here, you're going to have to teach classes other than step, which was really good advice, because had I just stuck with teaching step, I wouldn't have had a very long career, and that it's kind of been in the grave for a little bit, although I hope to see a resurgence. So my first indoor cycling certification was with Johnny G through the spinning program. To this day, one of my favorite certifications I have ever gone through. I have a passion for student development. So after undergrad, I went on to graduate school and got a master's in sports and fitness administration in order to become a fitness director at a university. So that's what I did for the early part of my career. And it was great, but you find out that management is a lot of sitting behind a desk managing fitness or attending meetings, when my heart is in doing the thing. I want to teach the classes and train the clients and work with instructors one-on-one to help them hone their skills. So the latter part of my career has been more centered towards that. I always say good teachers are the ones who use themselves as bridges. They'll lay themselves down and facilitate others crossing. Then after they have witnessed the safe crossing, they collapse and allow them to make bridges of their own. So that's what I'm here to do, is to help other people embrace this gift of an able body, learn to teach classes, learn to personal train clients, and go out there and do it. Let me be the vessel that you learn from, and then go out and change the world.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your attitude like that. And it takes folks like you that have that passion to help others in order to be successful. And that's what we're finding out as we've been doing these mentorship programs. There's just so many people that have that same type passion. They might not have the background, because yours is pretty extensive, obviously, but they have that passion. They know they want to help people, and they want to help themselves as well. But I want to get into the program of Johnny G a little bit, and kind of, what you found out, because I know that there's several different types of cycle programs out there. And this webinar today is mainly based on the cycling programs. And I think a lot of people probably want to understand, what differentiates like a Soul Cycle, which has been super successful, and they must be obviously doing something right the way they're doing their program, compared to a Johnny G or others. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I could talk extensively about that. Let's get started with that.
Sure.
So I tend to divide it into two different camps. You've got
Yeah.
your performance-based cycling, which typically is classes that simulate a real road experience. So people who ride outdoors on their road bike could expect that we're going to mimic something very similar to what they could experience outside. Their performance on the road bike out on the road should improve because of the training that you do in an indoor studio class. On the other hand, the soul cycle type classes, that's a
Yeah.
good example because they have really been the pioneer of what I call party classes. So
Sure.
it's a ton of fun. People come and you're doing exercises on the bike, like what they call push-ups. So your arms are going up and down like this, but when it's not really bearing any of your weight, is it really a push-up? But that's
Right.
what they call this move on the bike, and then moving your
Yeah.
pelvis back and forth is called a tap back, and riding at revolutions per minute that are far beyond what we teach in performance-based indoor cycling classes. Even if you watch the Tour de France, they are not riding faster than 120 revolutions per minute ever,
Right.
period. And yet in some party classes, you'll be riding at 160 revolutions per minute. So the difference is performing our performance-based classes for human
Yeah.
performance. We want to
Okay.
help our participants achieve a higher level of human performance. That's the goal. The other is to show them a good time. Have a good time, keep them coming back. But you
Yeah.
can't throw shade at that because at least people are moving. Any type of movement, any way we can get people on the bike, great. But
Yeah.
are we going to help them metabolically improve? Far more in a performance-based indoor cycling class than a party class.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, and it reminds me of, because I have a long background in running gyms and also of owning gyms, and I one thing that's stuck out, you were speaking about that, is that instructors make, because there's a name of a class, whether it's a soul cycle or this class or whatever name you want to put on it, how much do you think bears the responsibility of the actual instructor? Does the instructor have to come with a certain level of enthusiasm or characteristics that you look for? Or?
If the pandemic has shown us anything, it is that
Yeah.
people follow instructors. And I'd arguably say Peloton has done this very, very well. The vibe, I
Yeah,
always
good
say your
point.
vibe attracts your tribe, and they
Yeah.
have some vibing instructors that get the masses coming to certain classes, some more than others. And there are certain elements that really build a great instructor. One is the professionalism of putting a stellar playlist together and knowing what you are going to program for each song as it comes. So it doesn't have to be a party class in order to be on the beat of the music and have that ride perfectly match, perfectly pair up with the music. Another is arriving far beyond when your time of class starts, so that not only do you have your music going and you have your mic set, so you're not saying test 1 2 test 1 2 while people are in class. All of that is going there. The elements of the class are set so that before class, you can be one-on-one helping people. Newbies need quite a bit of time with their bike setup, figuring out how to change the seat height or the handlebar height or the fore aft position to make that bike
Yeah.
perfectly suitable for them. Also, it's super intimidating. If you've never taken a cycling class and you come in to do this, you're going to need some hand holding in the beginning to feel like you're welcomed here. You have a place at the table, and this is what you can expect during class. Here's your resistance knob. This is your cadence and all of the elements that make a good class. Also, education. I often say that education is what separates the who's who from the who's that and the who cares in the fitness
Yeah.
industry, because personality
Absolutely.
can only get you so far. If you don't know the science behind what you're teaching, why are you teaching it? It's just an acting class if you don't
Yeah.
have the scientific knowledge to back up why you created this profile and why we're doing that. And that's, again, 1,000% why I lean towards the performance-based cycling program, because having an ACSM exercise physiologist certification, having a master's in the field, being so passionate about indoor cycling, I know that when we teach performance-based classes, this is going to help people to change their lives, change their bodies, change everybody around them. Because when we get in shape, it changes us physically, it changes us emotionally. kind of
Yeah.
helps us be better on the inside, and that positively affects everybody around us. But there is something to the personality of an instructor. That's one of those intangibles that you can teach wattage, you can teach
Right.
VO2 max. You can't teach helping people to connect with you because you have an outgoing personality that's not overbearing and annoying,
Yeah.
but to find that personality. A lot of times a program manager can sense it in the first 5 minutes of an interview with an instructor, whether they have, or a potential instructor, whether they have
Sure.
the personality or not. And that's not to say everybody has to be extremely extroverted, as you can
Yeah.
probably tell so far in this webinar. I am, but there are phenomenal group fitness instructors that are a little bit more soulful, a little bit more introverted, less energy here, more energy kind of internalized, and
Yeah.
it's still a great experience. But personality is huge. You got to love your people. Those folks that come to your class, they're not just your tribe, they're your family. They've come to be part
Yeah.
of your fitness family, and so you got to love them like the family.
Yeah, it's a good point. And no, I totally agree with what you're saying. And it just totally snapped me back to running these gyms. And I just remember the different the different instructors or professor, whatever you would call them, running the classes, that some folks would come for different reasons, right? Because some people, maybe a younger crowd or whatever, they might want to gear towards the party, somebody they're not really looking for the competitive, or maybe they're not rehabbing injuries, or a little bit, because I noticed that some folks that have, I mean, especially with somebody with your background, I think you come across to me as somebody that's kind of in the middle. You got the super pro that's going to totally watch out for me, make sure I don't hurt myself in the class. If I have something ailing me, a back or something like that, you're going to be aware of that. You're going to be able to help me on something. But you're also going to make it kind of a fun thing too, and push me, and you'll know where to push me. As the party person, maybe not know that as much, right? Am I getting that kind of right a little bit?
You 1,000% have that. So they nail it with the dancing, the partying, the lights, in fact, the
Yeah.
party studios, the boutique studios get a lot right with that element. You walk in the studio, you're given a pair of shoes. You don't have to bring your own shoes from home. They give you a pair of shoes. You want a snack before class, they got snacks. You go in the
Right.
studio, the subwoofers will knock you off the bike. The sound system costs more than a moderate house in the Austin area where I live.
Yeah.
They pump the money into all of that hardware. The lights are incredible. Then you go to the locker room afterwards, and you've got your spa shampoo and conditioner and foo-foo stuff that typically you would see at a
Yeah.
spa. These are all the intangibles that people are going to the party classes for. They're enjoying all of that, but that's not to say we can't do the same thing and make it performance based cycling.
Exactly.
Change the programming, yeah, with the experience of
That's
the
right.
actual class. That's not 100% why people are going to the party classes. We need that in the performance type classes as well.
If you had a studio though, would it be okay to, and I mean, I know you have so much experience working at different places, that could you diversify? Could you have a couple of different style instructors so folks have options?
So I wouldn't lean on just the instructors, because then it's going to
Okay,
be like herding cats. You have no idea what one teaches one way, somebody else teaches another
good.
way. But you can set your schedule to where there are party classes, whatever you want to call that, and
Right,
performance-based
right.
classes, so that people can figure out what do they enjoy, or what does their body need, or what are they in the mood for today. Lifetime does that really well. They have a class called Amp Cycle that
Yeah,
is your party people, and you're going to be doing the tap backs and the quote unquote push-ups and all of that. And then they've got Edge Cycle that's going to be more for performance-based riders.
right.
So and plenty of other gyms do it as well, but
Yeah.
I would definitely encourage program managers to have performance-based cycling on your schedule. Don't go
Okay.
100% on the party way, because your people are going to get so much more metabolic and human performance gains in a performance-based class than they would in the fun party class. They'll have a good
Yeah,
time in the
that's
party
great
class.
information there. No, I think that's great information, because look, in our businesses of owning gyms and running them and things like that, what's most important to us is retention. And maybe the
Yes.
party thing fades away after a couple of things, but these performance-based classes, that's something that you can kind of grow on and expand on and see the results, right?
You
So
totally can. And now that indoor cycling bikes have come so far from back in the day, over 20 years ago when we first started
yeah,
doing this type of programming, when there was no digital display. And so you're just having to visualize either, okay, now imagine you're on a flat, now imagine you're on a hill,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now you should be breathing really heavy. Now you have a digital display on most bikes in front of you to give you that feedback. And so we can base classes around what wattage you should be aiming for, your RPMs, your cadence, your resistance, all of that. You can see it's giving you that feedback right on the digital display. So people are able to kind of gamify it.
Okay. If a studio wanted to host a training per se and to teach their instructors how to lead performance cycling classes, could you do that?
I could do that. In fact, so I was the executive director of healthy living for the Village Dallas until
Okay.
COVID kind of changed some things and I resigned from the job. But at that time, we were the first studio in Texas to order the Johnny G Spirit bike. And so I've got all these bikes coming in. We're opening a brand new facility and I needed instructor training. So I created it on the Johnny G Spirit bike to teach
Wow.
performance-based indoor cycling to instructors that we already had on the schedule, but they were teaching other types of fitness classes. Not a single one had taught indoor cycling before. And so it was a 7-hour training that taught, this is how you do bike setup. This is what all of the different things on the digital display mean. This is what wattage is, which is your power reader. And then it also went through different types of class profiles you would do on the Johnny G Spirit bike, so that it's not necessarily paint by numbers, but
Yeah.
they still have some creativity, but it's giving them the format to follow. It's not pre-choreographed, but it is pre-formatted so that when a participant comes to a certain type of class, maybe an endurance ride or a strength ride or a race ride, they know what that
Yeah.
means.
Okay. Okay. And I know from speaking to you before that I understand that you've developed 4 profiles for performance-based cycling. Is that correct? And what are they and why did you settle on these 4?
I wouldn't take the credit for that because my guru, master trainer,
Sure.
everything is Johnny Goldberg. So my first indoor cycling certification was with Johnny G. And then in 2019, I went to Santa Barbara and rode a century with him on the Johnny G Spirit bike and kind of learned from the master. He was the one
Yeah.
who created all of these performance type profiles that can be implemented on an indoor bike. In fact, the Johnny G Spirit bike itself is calibrated to Johnny G's road bike. So it's a
Yeah.
performance-based bike itself, but the profiles are an endurance ride. An endurance ride would be if you were getting out on the road and you were going to go ride a century, like a 100-mile bike ride or a 50-mile bike ride, a long time on the bike. You're not necessarily going to be boring old flat road the whole time. There's going to be peaks and valleys, but the heart
Right.
rate's going to stay relatively stable in an endurance ride. In a strength ride, we're going to be doing some mother of a hills. So it's like as if you're out on the real road and you're on a fixed gear bike going up some major hills. Of course, you'll have downhills too. We wouldn't do an entire class just climbing the whole way because that's not applicable to the real road either. You're going to climb, you're going to descend. And so that would be a strength ride. And you have
Got it.
interval rides. Interval rides tend to be what people really, really love because they're so metabolic. That's where you're going to go all out, maximize your wattage. That means your resistance, your cadence are both as high as they could possibly be for a short interval to get your heart rate very, very, very high. And then you'll recover
Yeah.
for an interval. So a HIIT or a Tabata, that would all fit into an interval profile. And then
Okay.
the fourth is a race ride. And you don't just wake up one morning and say, oops, I walked into a race ride. Your instructor
Right.
tells you for weeks that a race ride is coming up because that's going to be where you're going all out for an extensive period of time. And all out for an extensive period of time is obviously going to be very different than if you were doing just a short interval. But
Yeah.
on the Johnny G Spirit bike, we do have a FTP function on there that would be appropriate for a race ride. FTP stands for functional threshold power. And that tells
Yeah.
you what is the most amount of power that your body is able to create and sustain for an extended period of time. The 20-minute FTP test is the the gold standard, and that is programmed into the Johnny G Spirit bike. A 5-minute FTP test is also available, but come on now, if you're teaching your people a true FTP test, you're going the full 20 minutes on on any bike, but the Johnny G Spirit bike is one way we could teach a race ride, doing the 20-minute FTP, and there's other iterations of a race ride that you could do on a Johnny G Spirit bike or any indoor cycling bike, but that does need to be part of your performance programming. So we have endurance, strength, interval, and race.
Okay, interesting. Okay, great. Well, then I think that's a good segue into, I have questions about your feelings about the Johnny G bike itself. And by the way, I have a background with Johnny too. I've known him for many, many years, since Gold's in Venice. And then I had Crank when it first came out in my studio that I owned in Santa Monica. And I can't say enough about the guy. I mean, it's just, I love him and his family, hired his daughter. I mean, so anyway, so I'm with you on that. Those folks are awesome. But
he's so giving too. Like, he will not stop. You need education, and he's just a wealth of resource
That's right.
He's so gracious with it.
So talk about the bike a little bit. I mean, because I think a lot of folks that are getting ready to open studios, the first thing they do is, if they don't have an extensive background and understand the bike world as much, they understand, I know there's cycling and I know people want to be on bikes, but I don't know what's the difference of a Johnny G bike, and why don't I just get this one because it's, I can get this one used for $20 or whatever, what's the difference of what makes the Johnny G bike stand out so well in your experience?
Yeah. And I'll speak to that not as a Johnny G Spirit Bike Master Trainer, but as a purchaser, which I was, that kind of led me to becoming a Johnny G. I loved it so much, became a master trainer with it. But when I was the executive director of Healthy Living for the Village Dallas, we needed bikes, and I went to URSA for the only reason of walking the trade show to find what indoor cycling bike are we going to use, because I kind of want a dog and pony show. I kind of want something that's going to stand out among the rest of the studios in Dallas. And there's a ton of studios in Dallas. So what are we going to do to offer a bike that knocks their socks off, where people are saying the Village Dallas is where I go to take cycling because they're the best bikes around? I come across, and it was actually towards the end of URSA when I'm just exhausted. I've tried all these other bikes, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess we'll settle with, I kind of had my mind made up on something else. And then I see the Johnny G Spirit bike, and it's got this digital cockpit that the light glows a bright blue. And I'm like, I can already imagine. We had a blacked out studio, and we did have the major subwoofers and the great lighting that AV Now did, the lighting with all the gel lights and all of this. So the studio was going to be set with the room completely blacked out, the blue light that was going to shine on that digital cockpit. I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And then I see how you can change the resistance on the handlebars. So it's not just the center console, where most bikes you can have the resistance knob or resistance lever right on the center console. The Johnny G Spirit bike, you reach the ends of the handlebars and can adjust plus or minus on the resistance. Also, it shows the levels. So not only does it show your RPMs and your wattage, but it gives you a level of where you're at, and that determines the resistance. So as an instructor, I knew I'm going to be able to tell everybody, I want you between an 8 and a 10 on your level. If I was doing a flat with a headwind, it would be about between an 8 and a 10 on the level on a Johnny G Spirit bike. And you're on a heavy hill, you're between a 13 and a 16 on your level on the Johnny G Spirit bike. So I knew I was going to be able to create programming. Of course, my head's always thinking about programming. Yeah, it's great to have a good bike, but how am I going to be able to sell amazing classes with this? So having that level on the Johnny G Spirit bike, that was another really, really cool thing. The Ant Plus technology that's on the Johnny G Spirit bike allows it to connect with the heart rate strap, and also send your data right to your Garmin. It's compatible with other technology, such a biggie right now. So it's compatible with MyZone. MyZone was what we chose to use for the leaderboard. And you could use Fitmetrics or Spivvy or plenty of other apps that are compatible with the Johnny G Spirit bike. The only one that mattered to me was MyZone, because I knew that's what I was going to be using for our technology. But the bike itself, it's heavy as an elephant. It is the heaviest bike on the market. So I'm very glad I wasn't the one having to move each of these bikes into the studio. Extremely heavy, because it's such a well-made machine. it's a heavy duty machine. It runs on a generator, which is a great thing because as the studio manager, I wasn't wanting to have to change out batteries on a digital console every time one dies and the instructors think that the bike is broken. Oh no, it just actually needs new AA or AAA batteries.
Right.
So many bikes are made like that. And a lot of times studio managers, it's an afterthought. They get the bikes and then realize, oh, what a pain in the butt that I've always got to go changing the battery on this. Because the Johnny G Spirit bike runs on a generator, that's a no-brainer. In fact, last year, we had what was coined snowvid in Texas, where it snowed so badly, we all lost electricity. The inside of my home was 0 degrees, 0. Yet I was still able to get on the Johnny G Spirit bike that runs on a generator. And I did an FTP test and was sweating in a home that was 0 degrees
Wow.
temperature.
We don't recommend that though, but do what you can when you're in that situation. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because we hear that a lot. Like the design was just really clever. Somebody that knows cycling, right? Like you said, easy to adjust controls where you're not moving around so much, where it's just right there for you, and like a Tesla type design, right? Just thinking ahead, real progressive.
It's so progressive. And I love that Johnny calibrated it to his bike to know that I can rely that these wattage, the watts that it tells me that I'm producing on the bike, I can believe it, take it to the bank. This is legit. Whereas there's a competitor that has a heavy flywheel. And because the flywheel is so heavy, it's giving a higher reading than should be accurate of the watts that you're producing on the bike. So you feel great. It's like, I did a FTP test on one of them and I was 4.6 kilograms per watt. I'm like, I was 4.6 watts per kilogram of body weight, which means I'm like an elite cyclist up at the tippy top. It's like, no, it's because the watts aren't quite right on that bike. I'm a solid 4.1.
Well, listen, there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to want to, maybe our guests, they're going to want to connect with you. So I'm going to let you tell folks where they can do that. And maybe we'll have some people that are interested in understanding about the master program that you went through with Johnny G, which is pretty incredible. So where can our guests connect with you?
Oh, great. Yes, thank you. And I'm always open to receiving emails or connecting over social, whether it is regarding performance-based indoor cycling or where I got my jacket, whatever it is that I can do to help you. That's what I'm here for. So you can reach me. My website is brookbenten.com, and you can tell my name is spelled a little funky, BROOKBENTEN.com. And on social, I'm most active on Instagram. So at Brooke Benten is the best way to reach me on social media. And you see my email right there on the screen. So please feel free to connect anytime.
That's awesome. Okay, well, great. I think we'll probably be coming back in now. It's seriously fun talking to you, man. You're just a wealth of knowledge. It's just incredible. I could talk to you all day, honestly.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I totally feel the same way, but I realize that we've got to be respectful of everybody's time.
Yeah,
so
I think I ran over, but it's easy to do with you because you're just, you just had me going like, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, good concept. I get it.
Thank you.
So Will, are you back in, buddy?
I'm back. And yeah, Brooke, thank you so much. Really terrific information. Everyone, please, we've already had quite a few questions come in. So be sure to hit that Q&A button if you have any more for Brooke about anything she said or anything about the bike or anything at all. And yes, there's Brooke's information up there. She's happy to answer anything if you guys want to reach out to her directly as well. So Brooke, thank you so much again. We'll be seeing you soon when at the end of the webinar for the Q&A.
Okay, rock and roll. Sounds good. I'll get to type in some answers.
So let me just tell you guys, actually, here we go. So yeah, there's a reminder for the questions. Before we move to the next segment, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the bike that we've heard so much about, the Johnny G bike. Spirit Commercial, if we didn't make that clear, is who makes this bike. And if you're someone who's interested in starting your own cycle studio, or if you're an owner maybe who is thinking about leveling up, it's a really great time right now to invest in some Johnny G bikes. We're actually offering a discount discount, a 40% discount through the end of the year on packages of 12 bikes or more. And if you are interested in learning more about that offer or more about the bike, johnnyGspiritbike.com is a great resource. It's a really excellent website we've put up that really tells you everything you need to know. And then if you have any questions about this offer, if you'd like a free quote or consultation, you can actually shoot Mateo an email at m.baker@diaco.com. That email address here is on the screen now, and we'll be putting this up again at the end of the webinar in case you don't catch it. All right, so it is now time to bring in Brent, and he's going to be talking to us about the mentorship program because he is one of the people on our mentorship board, as we call it. Brent, welcome. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks.
Great. So, we'll just get right into it. In a nutshell, what is the mentorship program?
The mentorship program it's really designed for people who want to get into the fitness business. Like today's webinar, there's going to be a lot of cycling instructors. Maybe somebody wants to move forward and have their own cycling studio or something. They know the programming or they know how to create a program, but they don't know how to run the business or how to get the business started. So this is created for that.
Yeah. And it's for anyone interested, personal trainers, instructors, fitness professionals, cycle instructors, really anyone at all. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
What are some specific benefits, would you say, of the program?
Well, the specific benefits or advice, roadmap on where you need to be along the process, like maybe timeframes. We'll go into it more, I think, but we do 3D floor plans. So if you have a space and you want to create a design, equipment selection, and a business plan, everything you need to open your own fitness business or studio.
Yeah, it really is step by step. You mentioned that 3D floor plan, and we have actually one right here that we can begin to show people. Brent, this is one I know that you prepared kind of as a mock-up example of what this would look like. And so what are we seeing here?
Well, this is just a design. I put a little bit of everything in here, but I mean, we can put the whole thing together. A lot of times people come in and they know they want to start something, but they don't even know how to visualize it. So this actually helps people visualize it before they ever get to the point of really planning. So, people change their mind, or, you need to show this to investors, or you need it for an SBA loan, things like that. So, and more than that, it's also spacing. For people here who want to do cycling, maybe it's not so complicated, but maybe you've got a 1,500 square foot space, and you want to know how to divide it out. Can you have an office, things like that? So this here, just an office, and you can see we can customize it a lot. So putting up posters that people want and signs people want. Did a juice bar here. And when you go along, I did some of the group exercise rooms. So kickbox, we have thousands of pieces of equipment that we can use. It's not just Spirit fitness equipment. So really we can use anybody. So if you have some other things you want, this here is like, we got theater like placement here for the Johnny G. I can do tons of designs, lighting, drop down lights, all sorts of stuff in there. And then we've got all of our equipment here. We've got the selectorize and all that here, group exercise room. So let's say you want to fit 35, 40 people in. So we use the risers and stuff to kind of give you an indication of how much space you actually have compared to how much you think you have. So like I said, this does a lot to really put into perspective. We've had people either shrink down the amount of space they're getting because of the EC design or add more because maybe they want to try to keep their costs down and they say, well, I want 1,000 square feet, and I'll show them what they can fit in there, and that's not what they want. But like this here, maybe somebody will think this is, maybe that's too cramped. So it would be something to consider. But like I said, we can do a lot of stuff here. So we do have the selectorized equipment, plate loaded stuff back there in the middle. I did a functional training zone. And you can see this is pretty extensive. And this, just so you know, this video isn't even great quality because of the way we're playing it. I mean, if I send it to you as a video, depending on your quality, I mean, this thing could look almost real, almost like you're there, virtual reality.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Just because we're streaming this, it actually lowers the quality quite a bit, but you can export these videos in 4K. Yeah. What are some other things? I mean, you touched on how, a person in the mentorship program can use this design to kind of visualize their space and get an idea of how much equipment could fit into a space that they already have or are thinking about. What are some other uses that you've had other people in the program use this 3D floor plan for?
Yeah, so I mean, there's some people that are already, this is what they want to do, and they've maybe they're still trying to find some financing, so they've used it to take to whoever they're talking to about maybe it's their parents, maybe it's their partner, and they can take and show the partner their vision. I've worked with teams of people who use it so they can all pull together their visions, especially if you have a larger team of investors. But so people use it to gain investment because they show them the space and their vision so they can explain it. We do a walkthrough like this. People use it for their pre-sale. So let's say you are opening a cycling studio, but you got about 30 days or 45 days to build, and you want to sell memberships to your cycling studio before you open. So we would do a walkthrough like this. And so you could loop it on a television. So there's that, and people put it into their, we also take a lot of photos, and we do equipment lists off this and all sorts of things that end up going in to the business plan. And then the business plan, of course, helps you to get an SBA loan or a loan from the bank.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This mentorship program, we've spent a lot of time on it and had a lot of people come through. And so, yeah, I mean, with this floor plan, the business plan, I mean, we're really trying to provide all the tools that you need to pitch investors and do everything you need to do to get started. We mentioned that it's free. So I just want to reemphasize that this is all zero cost to join. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So this 3D plan, I do the 3D plans. I'll get together with the mentorship program participants, and we'll have, sometimes it's a couple meetings, sometimes it's a lot of meetings, especially if they're very detailed about what they want. And we'll come up with a really good floor plan for them. The business plan, I mean, unless they want to write the business plan themselves, which some people are up to the task. Most people I know in the fitness industry aren't, because they're more like, doers than, the ones that sit down and write. They want to do, activities. So we do have to do the business plan, we have a freelancer we work with. And since we work with him often, he charges $500 for a really nice business plan, as opposed to, I see a lot of people doing business plans for over $2,500. So we don't charge for that. It's the freelancer, but that really helps people to kind of move forward, because that's a big stumbling block for people when it comes to starting their own business. They think that they do need a business plan for an SBA loan, and writing 60-page report is just not, most people aren't up to that task.
Yeah, me included.
Yeah.
All right. And let me just ask you, why is Spirit doing this? Why are we investing all this time and effort into this program?
Well, we have a thing, make a friend, then make a sell. We want to let people know we're invested in this process. We're not just trying to sell the equipment. We work on tips, basically. So what happens is we work with people, we put all this up front, we help them get where they need to be able to open their own business. And then by then, that's when, we hope that they'll make the choice to use us as their official equipment provider. We want to build partnerships. And of course, we want people to know that we're willing to put in the effort and the work. We're going to be there at the beginning, and we're going to be there after. So we want to be long-term, but we just think it's very important to be that kind of moving, living part of our community.
Okay. Last question. How do you apply?
Well, right here, I guess you've got my information. It's brent@spiritcommercialfitness.com. You can send me an email, and then I'll be happy to give you a call. We'll do an initial consultation, find out what your fitness business is, and let you know more about how we can help you. And then we'll start designing a program for you. And that's it.
Cool. Okay. Well, there you have it. Brent, thanks so much. We have reached the last part of the webinar now, and that is the Q&A portion. We've had a ton of questions come in. We want to thank everyone who stuck around for all of this, and we're going to get straight to those questions now. So let's bring back in Brooke. It looks like Mateo has already joined us. And ask her to unmute.
Okay, I'm back.
Hey, there we go. Hey, Brooke. Well,
Hello.
thank you for sticking around again, everyone. Let's just get straight to it. Chris tells us that I believe he is a Johnny G certified spinning instructor who's attended several spin conferences in Miami. They want to know that if those are still happening, and if so, are there other conferences that you know of, Brooke or Brent, that person can consider attending?
Those were so super fun. And I know that they would be open to hearing that you want to bring it back. I would love to bring it back too. But at this time, that has been kind of put on hold. And I don't think that there is any intention of returning real soon. As you know, live and in-person conferences kind of took, not kind of, like totally nosedived into the ground. That we've done the best we can with digital conferences. But I think every conference is a little bit wary, even including URSA, of coming back live and in person. Although URSA did. But.
Casualty of COVID. Is there any other place then that a person can go for the same kind of information they were getting at these conferences?
There's a regional conference called SCW Fitness that they come to major cities across the United States. There's about 8 of them a year. Also, Idea World is a phenomenal place to go to get your education. And I always champion URSA.
Okay. Allison asks, can you share any statistics on indoor cycling in clubs? Outdoor cycling is way up. This person says that every club she talks to is struggling with indoor cycling. This might be a question any of you can answer, but we'll start with you, Brooke.
I think it depends on the clubs. Some clubs are doing indoor cycling really, really well. And depending on where you're at in the country, some gyms still are not back to pre-COVID numbers. And so the participation in the gym just isn't quite there yet. But it's been my experience that the tailwind of Peloton has actually helped in studio classes here in Austin. Our numbers are actually really, really good. And I only teach at Lifetime. So from my experience at Lifetime Austin North, indoor cycling is just as hot as it ever was, if not a little more so with the tailwind of the times.
Yeah, I think that question also, Will, could be answered. I think Brent would probably agree with this as well, is it's going to depend on logistics, where you are in the country, right? Can you even go out? If you're up in Minnesota, it might be pretty cold. Also depends on, as an owner, what you're allowed to do. Do you have the space outside? Can you permit to go outside with folks? But I can see definitely if you're in a nice climate area that it's a great option. You know, and there's a lot that goes into it. Like Brooke said earlier, when we were talking to her about, you know, how she sets up her classes and how people get there early, and that the sound system's hooked up and everything, you know, and once you start going outside, if the club's not set up for that, you know, that could cause some issues. So I guess that's going to be one of those depender type questions.
Definitely. Brent, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I just agree. COVID right now makes everything it's so hard to answer it and pinpoint it. Like it's not business as usual. So yeah. I would say that I don't think that the older crowd has disappeared and that it's changed the face of indoor cycling forever. If anything, this has created a new environment where some people are doing live streaming and providing content online. And now you can hybridize, so you can have an indoor. Yeah. So really, there might be some great opportunities coming out of this. Brooke might even be able to speak to that, and we might have another webinar specifically for, you know, creating content, because you already have a studio. Why not create content? Now you can hit. So I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but like the reason I mentioned the streaming part is there are some things that have changed, but I expect when things settle back down and everything's under control, it'll probably go back to more like business as usual.
I would also recommend, just being programmed, that's, you know, where my heart and soul is. I would recommend that you maybe try some novelty classes, probably a theme ride. Dirty Dancing ride just did really well that I hosted a couple months ago. I did a Mamma Mia ride, which was a mix of ABBA and Mamma Mia songs, country western ride. So people love the novelty rides, and then just market the heck out of it so that your members are aware.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that question. You know, there is something else also asked, and Brent, you touched on it a little bit, but let's ask Brooke as well. She says that some of the consumer data shows indoor cycling appeals to older adults. However, club and studio demographics have lowered 10 years, I guess, according to the data this person is seeing post-pandemic. She asks if you have any other ideas to boost participation.
I would go back to the tailwind of the Peloton times that got the younger not the younger kids, I mean, the younger folks enjoying cycling. It's cool again. And that's gotten them back on our bikes live and in person as well. I would say that on average, I wouldn't say that it's older adults, probably 40s, about 40s is the average of my participant in class. And maybe because I'm in my 40s, I would not say that that's an older adult, but that would be the average of classes.
Yeah, and I'll say my answer goes to that question because I did see that question earlier, so that's the one I thought I was answering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I think that Brooke kind of answered that as well with the different themes, right? Because if you had a different type theme that maybe drew in a younger crowd, right? Whatever the younger folks are listening to, maybe if you had some kind of theme based around that, would that work? Brooke, would you advise that?
I absolutely would. I think that music is such a motivator, and that is what's going to get people to class. Like the Dirty Dancing ride, I sure enough did have a whole lot of 50s and older in my Dirty Dancing ride because that was the jam. But yeah, depending on what your theme was, it's a great idea.
what would a country western one do? Are you supposed to dress up like wear a cowboy hat and like
You may have seen my post. I did wear the cowboy hat and boots, and somebody actually thought my SPD cleat might be in the cowboy boots. And unfortunately, that I don't think is a thing yet. So no, I had to take off my boots to slide on the SPD shoes.
Because that was Taylor's next question, is if they have clips on cowboy boots, because he'd like a pair.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if I could just wear chaps.
Yeah. So, sure.
But that's the thing, finding instructors that will commit to it. If your theme is a country western ride, they need to show up in the chaps and the hat and the
Right.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
That's fun.
So Brooke, this next one was one I can see you already wrote out a text answer to, but I'm going to ask it of you again, just because if in case this information helps anyone else. But Pod Laptop is his name, says he teaches sometimes and that not all of his bikes have monitors, but for sprints, this person is asking what a good target RPM is.
So a great target is between 100 and 120 revolutions per minute. If you're sprinting on quote unquote a flat road is going to have enough resistance that you feel something countering you. You're never wanting the bike to ride you. You're riding the bike, so you have enough resistance to counter your sprint, and your sprint would be 100 to 120 revolutions per minute. And if you don't have the digital display to give you that feedback, you as the instructor can get a feel for what it is, and then you tell your class, copy my rhythm. Copy the rhythm of my legs. Let's all get on the same ride together. So they could do that in a pinch without the digital display.
Another question similar, this person asks if you test for FTP.
I absolutely recommend testing for FTP. Don't only do the FTP test, because the FTP test is going to tell you what your average watts were over the 20-minute or the 5-minute FTP test. That's some information. Better information is to then teach them how they can take their body weight divided by 2.2. So you take your weight in pounds divided by 2.2, that gives you your kilograms. So then if you take your watts, your average watts per kilogram of body weight divided by the kilograms of body weight, then you can go to quick Google search and see where do you rank among your gender with that performance that you had in your FTP test. Now, I don't recommend repeating the FTP test any more frequently than once every 8 weeks. You could go longer than that, but don't do it like once a week we're doing the FTP test, because you're going to be breaking them down more than you are actually seeing improvements or helping them to improve their human performance. So once every 8 weeks or longer would be my recommendation for doing the 20-minute FTP test.
And for anybody that went by too fast, and because I know it's hard to write it down, we will send out a recording of this after the webinar is done, and it'll be posted on our YouTube channel. Also, you'll have Brooke's contact information, so you can send her an email directly, and I'm sure she's got that all written out already. So
I want to add one other thing. Because your participants aren't going to know what an FTP test is, we have to be sure we're speaking to them in a language they understand. FTP test is testing your power endurance on the bike. So it's going to tell them how much power you can produce and sustain over an extended period of time. And so be sure that you give that explanation, not just let's do an FTP test today. I explained that that means functional threshold power, and it's just a test of your power endurance. And that's what we're testing on the bike.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I honestly was just like, yeah, FTP test. But I have no idea what that means either. So yeah, that's a
you're
really
thinking
great point to
FTP,
make.
you know me.
File transfer program. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, that's a great reminder. I mean, we run into that on ourselves as well. We always need to think about the people that don't know the terms in the language we speak.
It's so true. And it can kill, that kind of jargon can kill an otherwise extraordinary performance cycling experience. We're so in our heads with FTP and VO2 max and all of these terms. The average Joe, average Jane have no idea what we're talking about. So let's speak on a language that everybody can understand.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we just have a few more questions here. Kristen asks about the cost of the bike. Brent, I'm going to let you answer that one.
Well, you know, the retail rate price of the bike is $32.99, and we're doing 40% off right now till the end of the year. So like I said, if you have any questions or you have any more interest about that, you can email Mateo at m.baker@dyaco.com, dyaco.com.
Yeah, please do. And I know that sometimes that we have a little bit more, we have some flexibility depending on, you know, how many a person wants as well. But we are having that great special, which is amazing. But also, if you're going to order in bulk, like we just had a guy that ordered 30 something bikes, so we were able to have a little bit more flexibility. And we still have some here in the country too, right, Brent?
Well,
so they don't have to wait long.
Right now, a lot of people are having inventory crunches. We have bikes in inventory, so we could have some out within a couple of weeks. I mean, where a lot of places are taking 3 months right now, so that's an advantage.
Okay. Well, I think that does it for us. I want to thank everyone who asked all these great questions. And I just want to thank Brooke one more time for being here. It was really terrific. You speak so well, and you obviously know what you're talking about. So it was really, really great to have you on. Thank you again. We just want to remind everyone, if you have questions for Brooke, if there's anything else that you want to ask her about or reach out to her about, here's her information here. You can send her an email. You can reach out to her on Instagram. We want to thank you all for joining us as well. So many people stuck around. If you have any other questions for us, you can also shoot us an email at info@spiritcommercialfitness.com. Also, please use this opportunity to get on your Instagram and follow us there as well. Like I said, we have a lot of information out there, especially for people just getting started in the fitness business, getting started as a fitness business owner. You can also check out our website, spiritcommercialfitness.com. And if the mentorship program is something that interests you, the website for that is here, spiritcommercialusa.com/mentorship. Now, we're going to send an email out right after this webinar with a link to that program. So if you are someone who thinks that you're ready to really kind of supercharge your efforts into getting a fitness